Gotthold Lessing sits in a dimly lit box of the Hamburg National Theatre on a late September night in 1767, his pulse quickening with anticipation. On stage, the final act of his new comedy, Minna von Barnhelm, unfolds before a packed house. In the flicker of oil lamps, two characters, a proud Prussian officer and a spirited Saxon lady, stand before each other, their misunderstandings resolved, their hands about to join in betrothal. For a moment, silence holds the audience. Then a thunder of applause breaks out and spreads through the theater like a joyful wave. Lessing lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He scans the crowd. He sees veteran soldiers wiping their eyes and merchants grinning broadly. He even spots a few French-speaking dignitaries nodding in appreciation. This is something new under the German sun. A homegrown German play that has moved hearts and provoked laughter, a story of love and honor set not in some ancient Greek past or imaginary court, but in the very world these people know. As the curtain falls, Lessing notes an elderly Prussian officer in the front row, rising to his feet, clapping vigorously, the man's uniformed chest heaving with emotion. 7 years ago, Prussia and Saxony were bitter enemies in the 7 Years' War. Tonight, in this comedy, their children find unity and love. The old soldier seems to understand the significance, and so does Lessing. In the warm applause echoing through the wooden beams of the playhouse, Lessing hears more than approval of a single play. He hears the sound of German theater coming into its own. Lessing's quill scratches quickly across his notebook. Even on this triumphant night, he cannot resist critiquing and refining. As the theatre-goers depart, he jots observations for the essay he will write about the performance in the next day's paper. This is, after all, his unusual role. Not only the playwright of Minna von Barnhelm, but also the self-appointed dramaturg, the in-house critic of the fledgling Hamburg National Theatre. By daylight, he writes analyses of each production, a running commentary called the Hamburg Dramaturgy, guiding audience and actors alike to a new understanding of dramatic art. He is effectively inventing a new profession for a new kind of theater. Tonight's entry will be a joyful one. The premiere of Minna has confirmed what Lessing fervently hoped, that a German national theater, free from the shackles of foreign influence and fake sentiment, can thrive. It had been a long road to reach this hopeful moment in Hamburg. Born in 1729 in a small town in Saxony, Gotthold Lessing was raised with intellectual rigor and piety. His father, a Lutheran pastor, expected his son to follow in his footsteps into the ministry, but young Gotthold showed an independent, inquisitive mind from the start. A voracious reader by age 12, he was sent to the elite St. Afra school in Meissen, where he excelled in languages, mastering Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, while also soaking up the plays of Plautus and exploring the new philosophies of the Enlightenment. Yet alongside theology and classics, the boy nourished a secret passion: the theater. Smuggled plays by Molière or contemporary comedies found their way under his bed covers after lights out. What must a dramatist feel, he wondered, to shape characters and move an audience to tears or laughter? At 17, Lessing entered the University of Leipzig as a theology student, dutifully, but the pull of the stage proved irresistible. Leipzig, in the 1740s, had a lively theatrical scene, thanks largely to a bold actress-manager named Caroline Neuber, who was fighting to elevate German theater beyond low farce and crude improv. Lessing slipped into Neuber's theater repeatedly, at first just an enthralled spectator. Before long, he was drafting short comedic scenes of his own, capturing foibles of academics and misers with youthful wit. Madame Neuber recognized the spark in the earnest young student. Under her mentorship, Lessing saw his first play, The Young Scholar, performed in 1748. It was a playful jab at pedantry, the protagonist an arrogant, bookish fop, through whom Lessing gently mocked his own scholarly pretensions. The production was a modest success. More importantly, it ignited a fire within him. Seeing actors speak his written lines on stage was a revelation. Here was a way to wed ideas and art, to engage the public in the questions that stirred his soul. His conservative parents, however, were horrified when word reached them that their son was consorting with actors, a morally suspect profession in their eyes, and neglecting theology. They hauled him back home in shame. But Lessing, persuasive even as a youth, convinced them to let him return to Leipzig to study something practical like medicine as a cover. all the while continuing his literary pursuits. Back in Leipzig, he wrote furiously, comedies, fables, critiques, bohemian style, befriending actors, even going into debt to help them. When one theater troupe folded, leaving him responsible for their unpaid bills, Lessing slipped out of Leipzig entirely to avoid imprisonment for debt. By age 20, he was tasting the precarious life of a freelance writer. In the early 1750s, Lessing landed in cosmopolitan Berlin, which proved fertile ground for his talents. Berlin's literary circles embraced the witty, impassioned young man. Lessing became a journalist and theater critic, dashing off articles that sparkled with insight and irreverence. He developed a reputation as a sharp pen who spared no hypocrisy. In the Berlin papers, he championed native German literature and slammed the slavish imitations of French classics that dominated the stage. At that time, the craze among German aristocracy was for the stately tragedies of Corneille and Voltaire, performed in French or in stiff German translations. Lessing, by contrast, admired the works of Shakespeare, chaotic, emotional, alive, and the new naturalistic trend in French writing, like Denis Diderot's domestic dramas. With each essay and review, Lessing was chiseling at the prevailing dogmas of taste. He argued that drama should touch the heart and conscience, not just conform to antique rules of poetics. He ridiculed the notion that only princes and ancient heroes were fit for tragedy. Why, he asked pointedly, could not a merchant or a middle-class daughter be the subject of a moving play? Why must tears and terror be reserved for kings and queens? Such ideas found dramatic expression in what became one of Lessing's landmark works, Miss Sarah Sampson, 1755. This play was a daring departure, often hailed as the first true German bürgerliches Trauerspiel, bourgeois tragedy. It portrayed the downfall of a middle-class girl seduced and betrayed, in a setting not of palaces, but of ordinary domestic life. Inspired partly by the sentimental tragedies of English writer George Lillo and the novels of Samuel Richardson, Lessing crafted Miss Sarah Sampson to prove that the sorrows of common people could wring the audience's gut just as powerfully as any tale of Trojan queens. When it premiered in Frankfurt an der Oder, many in the audience were stunned. Here was a tragedy in German about people like them, a trusting young woman, a duplicitous lover, a vengeful ex-mistress, speaking not in lofty verse, but in genuine, heartfelt prose. Some aristocratic critics sniffed that it was too low and sentimental, but theater-goers were riveted. They wept at Sarah's fate. Lessing had essentially kicked open the door for realism and emotion on the German stage. No longer would all tragedies end with an antique maxim intoned by a king. Now a middle-class girl's death could deliver a moral shock and a plea for empathy. By his late 20s, Lessing had established himself as an independent thinker and literary force. In Berlin, he befriended the influential philosopher Moses Mendelssohn and writer C.F. Nicolai. The trio would meet in coffee houses, debating Enlightenment ideas and plotting the elevation of German culture. Lessing's pen continued to be his sword. A pompous scholar who produced a bad translation of Horace found himself skewered by Lessing's satirical pamphlet, A Vademecum for Herr S.G. Lang, which demolished the man's reputation with witty ruthlessness. Lessing could be merciless against what he perceived as pretension or injustice. Despite these successes, the life of a freelance writer was financially tenuous. After years in Berlin, Lessing sought a stable livelihood. In 1760, he accepted a position as secretary in Breslau, now Wrocław, working for a Prussian general. The job was dull, but it gave him time to write and saved him from poverty. During this period, he produced an extraordinary piece of aesthetic theory, Laocoon, or On the Limits of Painting and Poetry, 1766. Though not a play, this treatise reflected the same mind that shaped his dramas. In it, Lessing drew a clear line between visual art and literature, arguing each had its own means. Painting captures a single moment of physical beauty. Poetry unfolds in time and can depict actions and emotions. By making these distinctions, he subtly freed literature and drama to pursue truth without slavishly imitating static classical models. Laocoon would influence aesthetics for generations, But at the moment, Lessing was yearning to return to the theater, to breathe life into those theories on an actual stage. The opportunity came in 1767 in the vibrant port city of Hamburg. A group of idealistic businessmen and artists, led by the theater patron Abel Seyler and other enthusiasts, decided to found the first German national theater. Their aim was audacious: to create a permanent theater with German actors performing German plays of merit, a theater independent of court patronage and foreign repertory. They invited Lessing to join as playwright and dramaturgical advisor. It was a dream come true for him. Lessing moved to Hamburg and threw himself into this grand experiment with zeal. From the outset, he wrote new plays tailored to this venture. Most notably, he had been polishing a comedy that would simultaneously entertain and instill pride in the German character. That play was Minna von Barnhelm, which he finished in 1767. As we saw on its opening night, Minna deftly combined social commentary with warmth and humor. Set in the aftermath of war, it tackled the very contemporary theme of national reconciliation and personal honor. At a time when Germany was not a unified nation, but a patchwork of states often at odds, to see a Prussian and a Saxon overcome mistrust carried meaning beyond the rom-com plot. It gently satirized the stiff code of honor that obsessed officers like Telheim, showing that humanity and love should trump rigid pride. Audiences responded to this human message and to the sheer novelty of seeing their own language and issues portrayed with such sophistication. Lessing, watching that audience in Hamburg laugh and cheer at German actors speaking his lines, must have felt a surge of vindication. Beyond playwriting, Lessing's contributions in Hamburg were revolutionary in another way. Through his Hamburg Dramaturgy essays, published serially between 1767 to 1768, he educated the public and the theatrical world about dramatic art. He reviewed the theater's productions, not with bland puffery, but with penetrating criticism. He used these essays to further his crusade against outdated conventions. For example, when the company staged a tragedy by Voltaire, Lessing bravely pointed out in his essay that the play's cold, formal rhetoric left the audience unmoved. Proof in his eyes that French neoclassicism was inferior to Shakespeare's more natural drama. He praised instead the newer domestic dramas of writers like Diderot and the power of Shakespeare to mix the comic and tragic. Through these writings, Lessing was essentially giving Germany a masterclass in how to think about theater. What it could be, whom it should serve, the people, not just aristocrats, and how it might engage both the mind and heart. For all its lofty aims, the Hamburg National Theatre venture struggled financially. By 1769, the theater closed its doors, victim of debts and the inability to sustain itself without patronage. Lessing was bitterly disappointed. The grand experiment had lasted only 2 years. But its impact, thanks largely to Lessing's own works and writings, would reverberate beyond its short life. Germany's theatrical awakening could not be undone. Seeds had been planted in the minds of a younger generation, including a teenager named Goethe, who was devouring Lessing's essays avidly. Lessing himself, however, found himself once again without secure employment. In 1770, nearly 41 years old, he reluctantly accepted a position as librarian in the provincial town of Wolfenbüttel, organizing the vast ducal library there. It was a far cry from the buzz of Hamburg's stage. The library's dusty stacks and the sleepy town offered him a salary, but little excitement. Lessing described his life there as that of a hermit. And yet, these final years would produce some of his most profound work, forged in personal hardship and intellectual battles that tested him to the core. Even in Wolfenbüttel's isolation, the fire of drama still burned in him. In 1772, he completed a new tragedy, Emilia Galati. This time, Lessing set the story in an Italian princely court, a seemingly distant setting, but German audiences immediately caught the allusion to their own society. Emilia Galati is the tragedy of a virtuous middle-class woman preyed upon by a corrupt aristocrat. Ending with her father, in despair, taking her life to save her from dishonor. Its echoes of the ancient Roman tale of Virginia only thinly veil a cutting critique of absolutist princely power. When Emilia Galati hit the stage, it struck a nerve in the era of Enlightenment. Was it not implying that contemporary princes, with their unchecked desires, were a menace to innocent citizens? Many saw in the wicked prince of the play a stand-in for various petty German rulers who treated subjects as playthings. The play's dark ending, a father forced to kill his daughter because he cannot protect her from the whims of a prince, left audiences in shock and deep thought. This was no neat moral tale. It was a challenge flung at the face of authority. It showed Lessing's evolving complexity as a writer. He could uplift hearts in Minna, and he could disturb consciences in Emilia. Yet even as his literary output continued, Lessing became embroiled in a perilous conflict offstage. At the Wolfenbüttel Library, he had discovered unpublished writings by a deceased thinker, Hermann Samuel Reimarus, that cast doubt on core biblical dogmas, always a proponent of open inquiry. Lessing began publishing extracts of these works in 1774 to 1778 as fragments from an unknown. These theological fragments argued, among other things, that revealed religion was full of errors, incendiary ideas in that devout age. The publications caused an uproar. The most ferocious counterattack came from Pastor Johann Melchior Gosse of Hamburg, who accused Lessing of trying to undermine Christianity and morality. Though Lessing had not written the fragments, he vigorously defended the right to question dogma. He found himself in a war of pamphlets with Pastor Gosse. Week after week in 1778, Lessing penned rebuttals, his famous anti-Gosse essays, unleashing his razor wit and logic to argue that no religious belief should fear the light of reason. In one of these polemics, he voiced what may be his most famous personal creed. If God were to hold all truth in his right hand, and in his left only the ever-active pursuit of truth, and bid me choose, I would seize the left hand and say, Father, I will pursue truth. For Lessing, the search for truth, even if it meant challenging inherited beliefs, was a sacred duty more valuable than clinging to comfortable certainties. Such a stance was bold, bordering on dangerous, in an age when the church can still make or break a man's livelihood. The Duke of Brunswick, Lessing's employer, eventually forbade him from further theological controversy, effectively muzzling him. Silenced in print, Lessing poured his yearning and idealism into what would be his final and perhaps greatest play. In 1779, he completed Nathan the Wise, a dramatic poem set in Jerusalem during the Crusades. There, in a city torn by conflict between Christians, Muslims, and Jews, Lessing staged a visionary plea for religious tolerance. The hero was Nathan, a wise and benevolent Jewish merchant, modeled, it is said, after Lessing's dear friend Moses Mendelssohn. When asked by the Muslim Sultan to prove which religion, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, is true, Nathan responds with a parable, the parable of the three rings. In it, a father bequeaths a precious ring that makes its wearer beloved of God and man. He has two duplicates made for his other sons, so that all three rings appear identical. Upon the father's death, each son claims to possess the true ring, and a dispute ensues. A wise judge admonishes them that it's impossible to tell which is real. Instead, each should strive to live so virtuously that his ring's powers manifest through good deeds, thereby proving it to be the true one. The message is clear. The true religion is not a matter of outward proofs or dogma, but of ethical living, love, and tolerance. In Nathan the Wise, the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish characters undergo trials and revelations that lead them to recognize their common humanity, famously culminating in the discovery that they are all, in fact, kin. In an era of sectarian strife, Lessing dared to suggest that beneath the surface differences, all faiths shared the same moral core, and that bigotry was the enemy of that core. Of course, staging such a play was another matter. Due to political and religious sensitivities and the fact that war had erupted again, making a drama featuring a noble Saladin tricky, Nathan the Wise was not actually performed in Lessing's lifetime. It was published and read, but its first stage production would wait until 1783, after his death. Nonetheless, Nathan stands as the capstone of Lessing's intellectual and artistic journey, deeply humanistic, philosophical yet warm, and dramatically engaging. It was his testament in the face of the theological battles, a call for reason and humanity over fanaticism. By the time he wrote Nathan, Lessing had endured much sorrow. His years in Wolfenbüttel were lonely. Finally, in 1776, at age 47, he married Eva Koenig, a widow whom he had loved for years. Briefly, he tasted personal happiness, but fate was unkind. Eva became pregnant, and in early 1778 gave birth to a son. The child lived only a day, and within weeks, Eva herself died of childbirth complications. Within the span of a month, Lessing lost his infant and his beloved wife. It was a crushing blow. His letters from that time exude despair and emptiness. He wrote poignantly to a friend, "I wished for once to be as happy as other men, but it has gone with me as with all my wishes." Some say Lessing died of a broken heart as much as anything. Lessing lived only a few years more. In February 1781, at 52, he succumbed to ill health, likely exacerbated by stress and grief. He died in Braunschweig, not with the fanfare that would later be accorded to Goethe or Schiller, but quietly, impoverished and exhausted. Yet the legacy he left behind was immense. In the realm of theater and letters, Gotthold Lessing had been a one-man whirlwind of change. Through relentless intellect and love of freedom, he helped liberate German drama from slavish adherence to French neoclassical rules, paving the way for a new national literature that valued sincerity over artificial elegance. He brought the middle classes and their concerns onto the stage, asserting that every human being's joy and suffering are fit subjects for art, not just the travails of kings. His critical writings taught his countrymen to value Shakespeare's wild genius at a time when Shakespeare was dismissed by the pedants. Indeed, it is often said that without Lessing championing him, the German love affair with Shakespeare, which so influenced Schiller and Goethe, might never have ignited as it did. Beyond theater, Lessing's voice was that of the Enlightenment in its most humane form. He argued tirelessly for tolerance, religious, social, intellectual. He fought dogmatism in all guises. In a Germany still fragmented and intellectually provincial when he began, he helped open windows to let in fresh air from England, from France, and from his own original mind. He dared to ask people to think for themselves, to empathize with others, whether a Jew like Nathan or a naive girl like Sarah Sampson, and to recognize the shared humanity that transcends creeds and classes. In the decades after his death, the seeds Lessing planted bore fruit. The generation of writers and thinkers after him, the Weimar classicists and the German romantics, revered him as a trailblazer. When young Johann Wolfgang von Goethe set out to write his first plays, he looked to Lessing's critiques for guidance. Friedrich Schiller might not have dared to write his explosive The Robbers had Lessing not led the way with Miss Sarah Sampson. And in matters of religious tolerance and intellectual freedom, Lessing's ideas found echo in the liberal movements that would gradually reshape Europe. Lessing's personal creed, that the honest pursuit of truth is holier than the complacent possession of it, remains a powerful challenge in any era prone to dogmatic certainties. There is a portrait of Lessing painted in 1767, the year of Minna von Barnhelm's premiere. It shows him with a keen gaze and a hint of a smile, as if he sees something amusing or hopeful just beyond the frame. One imagines that in that lively mind, he was already envisioning the conversations his works would spark in coffeehouses and classrooms across the German states. He could not have known that centuries later, his plays would still be performed, his words still quoted as foundational to German literature. But perhaps he sensed that he was part of something larger, that through the theater and open discourse, society itself could be enlightened and improved. The curtain had been lifted, and Lessing, with pen in hand, stood at the forefront of Germany's literary awakening. To this day, whenever we speak of religious tolerance, the primacy of conscience, or the value of emotional authenticity in drama, we are in the debt of Gotthold Ephraim Lessing, the dramatist of reason and humanity.
Midnight rails on her silver moon, dusty boots on a winding road. A shadow's the only friend I've known since she packed up and let me go. Empty whiskey bottle on the seat, her laugh still echoes in my bones. Saddle's heavy with memories. I ride alone where the wind still blows. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Sunrise paints the horizon gold, but it don't warm a lonesome soul. Every town I pass feels half her size. Every trail's haunted by goodbye. I whisper prayers to open skies, hoping someday my heart'll find a brand new path beyond the pain, where broken hearts can heal in time. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be.